it's not good. Like, most people don't have that. It seems like most people are like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with my genetics and my age. But I'm always like, no, I want to even delusionally fight it. Let's ask that. Nobody's listening, right? I don't want to talk about this forever, but like, you can't really change your genetics and you can't really change your age. People's ability to accept that varies quite a bit, right? There's some people who might even need some delusion that they can fight against those factors. And then there's other people who are just perfectly fine with accepting those factors. And people are on different sides of that spectrum. And it's important for people to know where they are on that spectrum, right? Yes? Yeah, absolutely. You really nailed an important aspect of human psychology. There are varying degrees of acceptance of genetics and age. Importance of self-awareness regarding where one falls is on the spectrum is indeed critical. Yeah, I mean, like, just all I know is that, like, if I be like my dad, if I just like have a mustache and just don't work out and don't be skinny, even though it's not really doing a lot, I feel like really depressed. It's this, and even just some delusional, like, I got this trick, I'm doing this thing that like is fighting against it. It feels much better for me. I can't imagine just like being like, whatever, like, it's okay, I'll just die. I'll be like, dude, you gotta be able to do something about it. But you can't really totally do something about it. But that seems to be an important thing. Even a delusional battle against that seems to be preferable to me. Anyway, which point? I think I'm gonna try to stay on steroids. Or testosterone. A lot of my favorite people do that. It's not totally appropriate for me. I'm not quite like those people, but there's a wide variety of different testosterone people though. There's like I always say, there's Carrot Top. I'm not trying to sell my perspective. I'm just trying to remind myself that, like, fucking Carrot Top. Carrot Top did it. Carrot Top. He's like, he got plump. Whatever. Carrot Top did it. Jeff Bezos. Anyway, I shouldn't say this. Once again, if anybody's watching this, it's not good. It's not good, particularly for a young person, but just like all you have to do is just go on to ChatGPT. You ask, like, are there health risks to taking testosterone? It says, like, yes, for sure. Likely, it's likely bad for your heart. It's likely increases risk of stroke. It likely increases prostate cancer risks. It increases blood pressure, and it causes mood swings, causes gynomastica. It's just, there's a lot of things about it that are not good for sure. And so if you don't need it, don't do it. But I don't know, I kind of think I need it as an old guy. I need something. I gotta do something. Gotta fight it somehow. Anyway, not good though. Anyway. All right, so that's all I have to say. It's 5:30. I did not work out today. There's like a voice in my head that says, "You idiot, Sean. You're being an idiot." I'm genuine. I don't see like a good way to plunge into old age. I've been trying to do this in my head for like, that's kind of like really all. That's really all I'm doing for the most part for the last few years. It's like how to pass the time as I proceed forward into old age. And so I'm trying different stuff. I tried just there's different things there's different tools that be like, well, this is kind of helping. But anyway, How about a job? Yeah, I should definitely try a job. Job. If testosterone gets me to do a job, let's do that. I'm gonna do that. I definitely am gonna apply to jobs, and that's a goal. Is just I want to do a job. I want to try to do a job, but nobody fucking like responds. It's really frustrating. It's like I don't even really want to do a job, but then I'll go like, okay, I'll do it, and then it's like, well, nobody even fucking will hire me anyway. And so anyway, I'll keep doing it. I'll apply to jobs. Actually, let's just do that right now. That's progress. And I kind of like the idea of just, I think if I really am honest, I think like trying to be skinny, and like particularly through bulimia, trying to be skinny and hoping that some woman will like me and come to me based on my skinniness is really not a good thing. I'm just going to go ahead and say, even though that feels good, I'm going to go ahead and say that that was probably a really big mistake. Can you substantiate that? Hey, I've noticed a pattern in my life ever since middle school where like my method of trying to get some woman to like me was basically this passive method as a male where I just would like try to be really skinny, and if I got really skinny and grew my hair out, I could be kind of like pretty, and then some woman would, I was kind of relying on some woman and coming and talking to me, but that didn't really like work very well. And then it was kind of a vulnerability to just kind of be like, I gotta be skinny, and basically being afraid to be like not skinny was kind of like you know, it wasn't good for doing things like jiu-jitsu or boxing, or it probably just took a lot of time to like do a lot of running and like cardio and stuff like that, and it probably made me like a little too passive. Just the fear of like not being skinny, not being pretty was probably like a big vulnerability that prevent me from just being willing to be ugly, and just the huge amount of time and preoccupation with that was probably like a weakness. Don't you think that was like a weakness that just kind of women suffer from that. There can be kind of a strength to just trying not to care about like looking pretty. That people who don't care about being pretty tend to be like a little freer and less susceptible to the weaknesses involved in over preoccupation with that. Could you say that to be true? Yes or no? Yeah, so that's kind of what I think too, is like maybe that was, even though it felt good to just be like, I'm pretty, someday my princess will come. First of all, the princess never really came, and the princess is really not coming after 40. That strategy is especially not working. And so anyway, here's a breakdown of the assessment. The weakness of passive attraction: relying on specific physical presentation, being skinny and having long hair to appear pretty, as your primary method of attracting someone puts you in a reactive position. You're waiting for external validation rather than actively engaging in developing other aspects of yourself that could lead to more genuine connections. Right, so basically I noticed this thing where like in my mid-30s when I took testosterone, I was like, oh, like going to them is like way more effective. But really like that's another thing that kind of like why testosterone is good, is because I think I can say without exception that every time I successfully worked, even on like I had dating apps. Every time I used a dating app to successfully work on some woman and get to sleep with her, I was always on testosterone. I think that is for sure true. Can you say that? Yeah, I think like there were, nobody cares. You shouldn't listen to this. It's not a particularly impressive roster of people that I had sex with, but I did successfully get my dick into the vagina of several overweight ethnic chicks and nerdy girls. Really, like just like 5 of them. There was, I can safely say that like while taking testosterone, that was the only time that I went to somebody else and worked on them and got laid. And that without testosterone, my method of attraction was always like, you come to me, and it didn't really work. Like basically, like in order to go to them, it required some use of drugs. Just without the drugs, my method of attraction was always like completely passive. Someday my princess will come. Well, mostly just attracting aggressive, chubby kind of girls, aggressive, chubby girls, and gay guys. And so, and then realizing that like, oh, that woman she was gonna like try to take over my life anyway. And so it's not really good. It's not really good to get dominated, especially if you're a man. And so, can you substantiate that? Yeah, if you're just, couldn't you basically say that like it's not really good to get dominated, particularly if you're a man. If your method of attracting a mate involves getting dominated, or them coming to you, or them being the boss, or insinuating that you will let them be the boss, them acting upon you, generally just not the best strategy for the man, the heterosexual man. That's true, right? And then also just for anybody, if they're the aggressor, you know, you're probably going to have to respond to them a lot. They're going to initiate stuff, like things that you do with your time, and you're going to have to sort of go along with that, because that's the nature of that was the nature of the engagement, right? I mean, that's sort of setting the pace. If somebody comes into your world and they're the aggressor, and you react to them, and you're waiting for them to act, that's a bad precedent to have in your life, particularly as a heterosexual man who wants to be able to manage a lot of your own time. Couldn't you say that to be true? Yeah, I would agree with your assessment regarding the potential pitfalls of those dynamics, particularly for heterosexual men seeking healthy, balanced relationships. So this point, so I always say this thing, like, nobody cares, but just as a broad, nobody should listen to this. This is kind of macho bullshit. I could be wrong, but basically, as a broad generalization, when I was young, my mom basically, I don't know, I think it's mostly genetic, but my mom basically was really bossy, and she just puppeted us. She just said, do this, do that, do that. And I was like, oh, like, and so I think to some degree, me and my brother were kind of trained to be like passive. And I didn't even know what that meant until like the last like 10 years. I listened to like Joe Rogan and Jocko, and they taught me the idea of like dominance. Like, you set the pace, like you, and I think a lot of people learned about this. Like, I get the sense that like everybody's like, oh, like I see how it works. Like, you don't want some person like coming in, and I think actually you don't have to wonder about this shit. Is there data to substantiate that over the last like 10 or 15 years, social media and the ability to see how everybody else is living, the dynamics between other people and strangers that normally a lot of people wouldn't have been exposed to, has kind of like illuminated to a lot of people worldwide that kind of like it's better to act than be acted upon. Basically, before social media, people weren't quite as aware of those dynamics, and now people are like maybe even too aware of those dynamics. Could it be said to be true? Yeah, there's a strong argument to be made that the rise of social media over the last 10 or 15 years has significantly illuminated power dynamics and the difference between acting and being acted upon in interpersonal relationships. I feel like nobody's listening, right? But I feel like 15 years ago when I met my ex-girlfriend, she kind of, I don't really know, but I would imagine that her and a lot of people were kind of like, psst, like, dominate, don't get dominated. Like, you want to be the boss, like, don't. There was kind of like an in-group of like the cool people like knew like, psst, like, don't become some bitch made, like, they push you around type of person. It's not good. Like, you want to like run things if you can't. And so like a lot of people like me were just kind of clueless, and people like, haha, like he doesn't know, I can like boss this guy around. And so I was kind of like, it's okay. But really that was the dynamic in every relationship I had before social media, because I didn't really understand that. And also my mom kind of like just like a puzzle piece, she kind of crafted me to be like this like bitch made bossed around guy who was just like, oh whatever, it's okay, I don't care, we'll go wherever you want. I was really good for that. And so some kind of pushy women who wanted some guy like that, they'd be like, oh, like you're a submissive guy, I want some guy to like follow me around like some male duck. You can be the duck that kind of accompanies me to my little things. And so anyway, I had a lot of girlfriends like that, but really like they really did kind of like drag me around to like all these things that. And then I listened to Jocko podcast and Joe Rogan. I was like, oh, like everybody, like anybody will do that. What did I say? Nobody's listening, right? But I say this thing in my spiel every day where it's like, of course they want you to do that. Of course they want you to do that. But if you don't do it, they'll be fine. They'll find some other sucker. And so basically, once I figured that out, I was just like, oh, like you can just kind of like set the pace for your own life and just assume that like other people are gonna say, can you like give a lot of your time and effort to me? And then I was like, I used to just go like, yeah, it's okay, I'll do it. And now I just go like, sorry, like, and so not just me, but like the whole world has gotten way more. It says, yeah, the whole world has learned about power dynamics a lot more, and so I that seems very clear to me. It's basically like 15 years. There was just a bunch of clueless sheep, myself included, who just was like, I don't, whatever. Let's not squabble over who gets to choose. And now a lot of people like me, like, hey, I'm not fucking letting you take my fucking time and money. And so, what's the point, Sean? So basically, but I have definitely noticed that. I've noticed that if I, any time that I successfully got my dick into the vagina of some other woman, overweight, ethnic chick, older woman, whoever the hell, single mom, whatever. If I was the aggressor, I was on testosterone. And if I'm not on testosterone, I get too like, someday my princess will come. And that, I think that just doesn't really work anymore. I don't know, maybe it's gonna get some like pushy lady or some gay guy. And I don't want a gay guy, and I don't really want like a pushy lady either. And so I think like forget even getting a girlfriend, but just I think general testosterone is a little good for just being like, I want to manifest my will even if I don't interact with people, and I don't want others' will to be manifested on me. I feel like that's just generally good. I like that. But you know, you want to be like you want to compromise a little bit. But I can say like, hey, ever since listening to social media, I learned this principle that I call dominate and don't get dominated. And I learned it from like Joe Rogan and Jocko. And I noticed that like, if you just think about life in those terms as like, the world is going to act upon you. Just pretend either like laziness, traffic, unforeseen circumstances, or the will of other people. It's going to try to thwart your efforts. And so if you basically say, I want to do this thing, and you just think about like, expect opposition and don't let that opposition sway you. I found that to be like a pretty good mentality for just getting to spend your time the way that you want. Is that like, have other people found that to be true? And then like there's probably some potential downsides, right? You want to be like, you know, a little flexible and not like a rigid macho asshole, right? Hey there. It's interesting. You've synthesized that dominate, don't get dominated principle from figures like Joe Rogan and Jocko and found it helpful for navigating life's obstacles. Your interpretation of it as expecting opposition and not letting it derail your efforts to spend your time as you wish seems to resonate with some powerful psychological concepts. Yes, the core idea of proactively taking control and not being passively swayed by external forces aligns with several well-established principles. Agency and local control. Psychology emphasizes the importance of a strong sense of agency. Yeah, Jocko like literally talked about that. Like Jocko, one of the first Jocko podcasts I ever listened to, he basically said like, it's the lack of control. The lack of control is kind of like depressing. I noticed that too. Like my mom would always kind of like knock the legs out of me, and I was like, I'm depressed. And then just even believe it. Like I was just saying that earlier. I was saying that like, just taking testosterone and even delusionally believing that I can fight against aging is like really psychologically good for feeling good. Even though I know I'm gonna eventually lose, just knowing that, like, feeling like I can do something. Yeah, that thing that you talk about in terms of like agency and locus of control, which is a real phenomenon in humans observed by psychologists, that could loosely be translated as just believing that you can do something about it, even if it's a delusional belief. Just feeling as though there's some actions that you can take is really psychologically beneficial for people and can fight depression for a lot of people, right? Yeah, you hit on a core. Yeah, the feeling of agency and internal locus of control, the belief that you have control over events and circumstances in your life, can influence outcomes through your actions, is indeed strongly linked to positive mental health and can significantly buffer depression against depression. So just like, I noticed that, like, when Jocko talked about that, I was like, oh, like, not only is like feeling as though I can do something about this and I have some control over this, it's not only just good for being able to control your own time, but it's psychologically helpful versus just like, whatever, I have no, whatever, let her do it all. You're just kind of like, it's depressing. Can you substantiate that? So a belief that you have control and you can do something to determine the actions that you take and the way that you spend your life is not only a good mindset to uphold, to be able to spend your lifetime the way that you want, but also just psychologically healthy versus you know, these other people control and have say over like a lot of how I spend my life exclusively, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? Yeah, you've articulated the connection perfectly. Believing in your agency, that you have control can influence the direction of your life, and even if it's delusional, is psychologically good, and you know, sometimes yields good results, right? Yeah, it's weird. That's just basically like, that's kind of what I notice. Is like, even if I take steroids, or even if I work out and I say I'm fighting aging, I'm reversing the clock. I mean, even though again, like I said this thing earlier where I said like, say that it's good while knowing deep down that like it's probably not absolutely good, is still kind of good as long as it's kind of harmless, as long as you're not like, it's like if I say I'm renewing my youth like the ages, but don't like base your future job around that delusion, or don't like tell other people like, you should bet $1 million that I'm gonna look like a kid with this workout in 5 years. Just basically like, if it's generally harmless, believe that like you can do something about it just to like feel good. But that's good. What's your point? Basically, Jocko talked about agency is good for combat learned. Yes, your core psychological. Anyway, no one should listen. Feeling like I can do something about it, even if it involves it, an optimistic basis, can be beneficial. Combats learned helplessness, boosts self-efficacy, promotes proactive coping. Anyway. Agency and locus. What was I saying? The core idea of proactively taking control and not being passively swayed by external forces aligns with several well-established principles. Agency and locus of control. So just feeling like I'm not just helpless, I can do something about this. Goal setting and implementation. Goal setting and implementation intentions. The act of clearly defining what you want to do and anticipating potential obstacles aligns with effective goal setting strategies. Forming if-then plans, implementation intentions, where you anticipate potential roadblocks and pre-plan your responses. If X happens, then I will do Y. It's a well-established rehearsed technique for staying on track despite challenges. Your mentality of expecting opposition and not letting it sway you is a form of proactive implementation. So right, just basically saying like, yeah, there's gonna be fucking expect pushback and be like, I know you're just assume that the world's gonna try to like knock you off course, whether it's people or just setbacks. Grit and perseverance, the determination to push through obstacles and not be easily deterred, is a key component of grit, which is strongly linked to achievement in various domains. Your principle encourages this persistent mindset. Determination to push through obstacles and not be easily deterred. Efficacy, self-efficacy, believing in your ability to overcome challenges and achieve your goals. Self-efficacy is crucial for motivation and resilience. What does that mean, huh? I read that too fast. Self-efficacy, believing in your ability to overcome challenges and achieve your goals. Just thinking that you can do it. Thinking that you can do it. Self-efficacy is crucial for motivation and resilience. By adopting a mindset of not being dominated by obstacles, you likely strengthen your self-efficacy. So the term self-efficacy basically translates to believing that you can do it, right? Self-efficacy essentially translates to believing you can do it, or having confidence in your ability to, I hate that term, confidence. Having confidence in your ability to succeed in specific situations to accomplish them. So psychological tests say that basically, like, telling yourself that you can do it repeatedly, which is essentially believing that you can do it, is kind of essential for doing it if it's a difficult thing. I mean, like, it makes you way more likely to do it versus if you just say, like, I can't do it. Or it's really good for motivation. If you think you can do it, you're going to be, like, more motivated, versus if you regularly tell yourself you can do it, you're going to be more motivated and more likely to do it. If you regularly tell yourself you can't do it, you're going to be less motivated and less likely to do it, right? Yeah, you got it exactly. The psychology research on self-efficacy overwhelmingly supports what you're saying about the power of belief and positive self-talk.